Welcome to City Life. I'm Richard Dagenet. It's disturbing to hear how easy it is to drag young Montreal girls into prostitution. It's even more disturbing to learn that very often recruitment by criminals is happening in the home and parents don't have a clue. We have a report coming up that spells it out. Also on the show, sensational singing talent Nikki Yanofsky is here to talk about her life as a Montrealer. It was a story that shocked many throughout the province. Teenage girls disappearing time and again from a youth center, a Laval youth center in a detention center in Laval. It was suspected that many of them were being recruited into prostitution by gangs, and authorities appeared powerless to stop it. Last year in Laval alone, there were 398 different cases where girls ran away from the youth centers. 127 different girls ran away, and Laval police believe in 33 cases the girls who ran away from the youth centers were sexually exploited. Those are just the cases Laval police are aware of. As surprising as it may sound, none of this is surprising to Lynn Dion of Batshaw, who says the phenomenon has been going on for quite a while.
Girls running away and getting recruited by gangs, that's been the case for at least, I would say, the past 10, 15 years. It's been the way.
The Quebec government estimates there are about 2.5 million acts of prostitution each year in the province, and experts say recruiters are everywhere. The cycle of sexual exploitation just keeps happening. City Life reporter Dan Spectre investigates to see how that's possible.
It's a big day for Arielle Desabis. She's at the Salon du Livre talking to young girls about her terrible teenage experience as a prostitute in Montreal. At 14, she ran away from home. She was constantly fighting with her dad, and she wanted to get out. A young girl all alone living in the streets of Montreal, it didn't take long for the wrong people to find her.
Au bout de 3 jours, je suis tombée dans les gangs de rue, dans les drogues. Puis quand même assez rapidement, au bout de quelques semaines, on m'a, dans le fond, fait danser, puis on m'a forcé à me prostituer.
She managed to escape before being sold into an even worse situation.
C'était soit que j'étais vendue ou soit que j'essayais de m'échapper, ce qui a marché.
Now 28, she's written a book in hopes sharing her story will help women get out of prostitution or not be drawn in the first place. But according to experts, gangs in Montreal are consistently luring teenagers into the kind of life she ran away from.
The mean age is between 14 and 15, but we have girls that have been recruited as young as 11 and 12.
Lynn Dion says the easiest targets are girls on the run, like Desabis was. They're in survival mode, and when someone offers them a place to stay, a way to make money, it's often too tempting to pass up. And when young girls find themselves in youth centers like Batshaw, for example, the recruiters hold a lot of bargaining power.
There's rules, there's curfews, and there's bedtime, and there's all kinds of, and kids don't like that.
And though Dion says a lot of girls in youth centers are still being recruited, nowadays they're not the only ones.
Right now you have, I think, with the social media, with Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat.
Sans même s'en rendre compte, les parents laissent les gangs de rue rentrer chez eux à travers de Facebook.
And Inspector Martin Evangeliste of the Laval Police says social media has made it easier than ever for the pimps.
His way of action can go much wider than what you could do by foot or by bus or by car. It reaches everywhere.
And with social media and the internet, teens can be reached by pimps even if they don't have a smartphone.
In the West Island at Fairview, at the Apple store, because kids will go there to access their emails or accounts or whatever, Facebook, because it was free. So that was a place where they would give messages.
He's going to build rapport, and at one point she's going to like that person, and she'll want to hang out with that person, but she doesn't know the deepest thoughts of that guy or that person that wants to bring the girl to prostitution.
Though experts say social media has become a key recruiting ground, for police it could be difficult to use it to catch the pimps without help from the girls themselves.
We only can go on social media if someone comes and press charges against someone, and there's an investigation ongoing.
And many never come forward. Offline, high demand for young prostitutes still has gang members fanning out across the city at malls, schools, and metro stations to recruit girls.
At one point, it was maybe Lionel Groux Vendôme, Barrie, but it's a lot of, it's usually those places where there's a lot of transit or, different metro lines, Côte Vertu was another place.
And that consistent demand is leading to a very lucrative business for the gangs.
On average, a guy can make about $250,000 a year. I always call it the gift that keeps on giving, right? I mean, if you're selling drugs, once you sold them, you don't have them anymore, you have money. But if you exploit a girl, you can keep exploiting her over and over.
You can order a girl here in Montreal as you can order a pizza. If you want different size of breast, hair, nationality, you can order whatever you want.
So how to attack the problem? This advocate says she's encouraged by the Quebec government's new plan to fight sexual exploitation, but more resources are needed to help women get out of prostitution.
They need support, be it to go back to school, to go back on the work market, or psychological, medical needs that they have, that it be addressed.
But to keep them out in the first place, Dion thinks kids need to be taught early on by parents and teachers not to take sex lightly.
Most of the kids don't see that as being exploited. It's only, for them, they will say, it's only sex. Why are you so concerned, Because we are in a society that kids and adults, everyone is bombarded with sexual messages. We need to go back to the basics with our youth, to talk about what is love, what is equality, what is healthy relationships, and to talk about that.
And while teens may not think of the consequences of their actions when they're young, 15 years later, Desabis is still processing what happened to her.
J'ai commencé à faire beaucoup de travail sur moi-même avec les thérapies et la médication, puis beaucoup de courage, je suppose.
I'm joined now by City Life reporter Dan Spectre. Dan, thanks for being here. The girls who are recruited into prostitution are often crazy young, but that's true even of some of the pimps.
I was surprised to find that out. Throughout reporting this story, I'm thinking of these pimps. You think of these kind of big, imposing gang figures. But what Martin Evangelist of the Laval Police told me was that they could be as young as 16 as well. Like as soon as the pimps are able to drive, they're old enough to be able to recruit girls because they could go pick them up, bring them to these hotels where these sex acts take place. So they could be really young too.
Mm-hmm. Social media certainly made it easy, it seems, from your story, for pimps to recruit young girls. But they can recruit them in malls, in metros, and even at the youth centers themselves. You had a story?
Yes, at the youth centers, they're really working hard because they know that's the place where the girls are vulnerable. Girls who maybe are on the run or are running away from a bad situation, don't have good situations at home, so that's where they're really vulnerable. And they're working really hard. They use the girls within the youth centers, actually, to recruit other girls. There was one story that I heard about a girl who actually committed a crime so she could get into a youth center to speak to other girls. Another where at Batshaw, they caught a girl going in with 10 cell phones taped to her body. And they don't want to do body searches of every girl that comes in. They want to give them their independence and, give them the benefit of the doubt. But this girl actually had 10 cell phones strapped to her body in hopes of giving them out to the other girls so they could have contacts with pimps on the outside.
And it's not just, families that are in crisis where this is happening to. It's even good families too can be affected by having daughters recruited.
Well, the whole social media thing makes it very easy for these pimps, for these recruiters to be able to contact anybody. It doesn't have to be just people who are vulnerable. It could be these girls who are in good homes and whatnot. And if girls are coming from a good home, they're more likely to kind of just repel these advances, to say, if they're met at a metro station or wherever it is, to just say, well, no, and that's more likely to happen if you're from a good foundation. But they could also be vulnerable to these offers. You're going to have this kind of freedom, you're going to have this kind of money, or even just the whole thing of making them fall in love with them, making pretend that it's a relationship, and then suddenly they're falling into prostitution. So that could happen to anybody.
Mm-hmm. It's got to be heart-wrenching for parents to have this happen to a daughter, and parents didn't want to come on camera. You did talk to some.
It happened in a few cases, and you could understand it. You could understand why they wouldn't want to come on camera. There was one parent who told me, his daughter just got out of this. She's kind of reintegrating into school, kind of getting back to a normal life, and he just didn't want to do anything to sort of jeopardize that. Didn't want to get on camera, put his name on it, and so then, of course, you bring attention back to the whole fact that this happened to his daughter. So they're afraid, but it is. Parents speaking out is important too, because it really brings a whole new level of awareness to this whole issue. And that's what we saw last year with the whole, and earlier this year with the whole thing surrounding the Laval Youth Center.
Dan, thanks.
Thank you.
We'd love to hear from you. You can email us at citylife@matv.ca. We're on Facebook at CityLifeMatv. And hashtag CityLifeMatv to reach us on Twitter. Here to discuss the issue of prostitution recruitment is Mélanie Carpentier, who at one point in her life was a sex worker, but now through Maison du Mélanie, you're helping women who are victims of violence. Sandra Wesley is from Chez Stella, which is a community group that advocates the legalization of prostitution.
Decriminalization.
Pardon me?
Decriminalization.
Decriminalization of prostitution. And we're joined also by Terry Cutler, who is a cybersecurity expert. What did you think of the report, Mélanie?
To the report?
Yeah, what did you think?
What I think is a good image of what the problem is. We have a lot of recruitment between the Saint Jeunesse and Bacha to go get the young teenage girl. And I don't think at the age they are, they could decide to do that kind of work because it's a hard job. So I don't think at the teenage age they can decide to do that. So we need to protect them.
Mm-hmm. What did you think, Sandra?
Well, I think that we are conflating a lot of different issues and mixing things, and that we need to maybe get back to the real issues. So yes, there's exploitation that can exist in the sex industry. The sex industry, however, is not mostly underage girls. It is not mostly people being lured or forced into it. We work with about 5,000 different sex workers every year. We do outreach, so we see sex workers everywhere in the industry. And we see a wide variety of people, mostly people who are just working and want to make money. Mm-hmm. And whenever we bring this issue in terms of the Saint Jeunesse, in terms of girls running away, we seem to be causing harm, actually, to sex workers as a whole, and even to those teenagers who are in these situations. If someone is running away from a Saint Jeunesse, you said about 100 or 130 different girls ran away in 1 year. Mm-hmm. Well, if you run away and you're underage, you need to make money. And people will end up in various criminal activities, doing various things that they would never consider doing otherwise. So the issue, first and foremost, that we need to address is why are young girls, first, why are they in a Saint Jeunesse to begin with, and why are they running away from home or from wherever else they're running away? And that we need to really bring back a lot of nuance to this discussion.
So why did you get into sex work in the first place? Did you run away from something?
Oh, they broke me. The street gang broke me. I've been raped. They tried to kill me by shotgun. They do a lot of things to me. So at the age at 18, that was normal for me to go there. And at the end of the time, a gang put me on slavery. So that was really human trafficking. But there was, before the law was added to the criminal code, so I don't have I can go against them from the justice because that was in 2001.
Do you think girls always have a choice?
No, not always. But some women choose to be a sex worker. Mm-hmm. So that was the solution for me at 18 because my experience of life put me there. I was a victim at 21 when they put me on human trafficking, then they put me as a slave. We need to make a difference with that. And I need, like, everybody need to be respect. If it's their choice, they can do it because it's not illegal. If it's not, we need to help them. And if it's a choice or not, we need to give them a life after. They so stigmatize the people, victim of sex worker, as we are criminal, but we're not. Mm-hmm. So I was a victim. How come you can stigmatize me and treat me like I was a criminal? That doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. So we need to give place to the women who've been there.
Yeah. Terry, Dan's report suggested that it's very easy for criminals, pimps, to use social media to get in touch with young girls. Yeah. Has that been something you've experienced?
Yes. So what's happening is a lot of times they go and create fake profiles, right? So thinking that they're anonymous.
right? They have a fake name, they can't be tracked. And what they'll do is they'll look for folks that come from a troubled home or have a problem. And what happens, they'll do a first step where they'll befriend them. Hey, I'm just like you. We have similar interests. Maybe one day we should meet up. And then at that point, something can happen. Or maybe the person sent an inappropriate photo. And now the criminal can say, listen, you sent me this photo. I can use this against you. If you don't do this, I'm sending this out to your entire network. At this point, the person is trapped. It's like, what do I do? Do I follow him? Okay, maybe it'll be over. And at that point, once they're in, I assume it's very, very difficult to get out.
So sometimes what they do, they give a guest to a teenage girl to go in a motel room, to go in a party. They rape her, gang raping. Gangbang, I don't know the right word. And after they film them with the phone, with the smartphone, and they say, well, if you not start to do prostitution, I'm gonna send that to your parents, and they're gonna deny you, or I'm gonna send that to your school, and everybody gonna see how you're slut.
Extortion.
Is like they're so bad to get what they want. And after, like, the victim feel guilty and think that's our fault, but that's not our fault.
We're seeing a lot of happening in the schools, too, where a lot of kids are sexting to each other, right? They don't realize that once this photo goes out, they no longer control it. So if they're sending it to their boyfriend and, months later or a year later they break up, well, those photos might still exist in his possession. And those photos can surface later on if this person has a better career, for example. Like we saw a couple of years ago with the person from the Montreal Impact, the sextortion case with Michael Salazar. So a lot of sextortion can happen with that as well.
I don't know. What do you say to parents? I mean, how can parents protect against...
Well, that's the problem, right?
Pimps getting in touch with their daughters through Facebook.
Because a lot of times the parents are just clueless when it comes to technology. So a lot of this could still happen at home. So if you see behaviors like every time you walk past them, they're always sneaking up on their phone or they're hiding stuff on their computer, switching it over. Parents need to get tech savvy and to learn what their kids are doing online. So
the parents need to get in touch with the children friends.
Yeah.
If they don't see it, I never get that problem with my son. Because if I cannot find him or he did not answer at his cell phone, I just text one of his friends and say, tell my son he have 5 minutes to call me back. If he's not, he's gonna have some big trouble. And after my phone rings. So I need, as a parent, we really need to get in touch with the friend of our children. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, that's right. You're saying exactly right. Sandra, you want to say something?
Yeah, I would like to maybe to hear Terry on how many actual pimps you see luring teenagers, and what other types of abuse and violence can start through an online
I don't see
interaction.
too much around the whole pimp thing, because I guess the whole pimp, we think of back in the 50s with the feather hat. But now it's more, I see a lot of extortion going on, more. It's like, you're going to do this or something bad is going to happen. They'll threaten them. So I don't necessarily see pimps luring them, say, okay, you're going to go into prostitution for me, and it's more, it'll be used against you to do something for me.
So other violent crimes.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you think, Sandra, well, prostitution's never going to stop, right?
Absolutely not. It's part of our society. It's part of, and women will always, and not just women, there are male sex workers also, but sex workers will always exist because it's a way to bring income, and that's usually the main motivation of people in the sex industry. People just want a paycheck at the end of the week, at the end of the day, and that's really the main driver. So there's nothing we can do in terms of trying to, as we have right now in terms of laws that have a prohibitionist model where we're trying to end the demand by arresting clients. That will not stop sex workers from trying to work. And what we have to do is really ensure that the industry is decriminalized so that we have good working conditions, that it's no longer a criminal activity. The reason why someone who wants to profit off of someone else's labor might choose the sex industry as a place to exploit this person is nothing inherent to the sex industry besides maybe the stigma that they can then use against the person. It's mostly because it's currently illegal, and that's a lot easier to, if you have someone who ran away from a sans jeunesse or who was otherwise running away from the police, well, putting her in informal criminal sectors is a lot easier than making her work in a legitimate job. That's why we really think that in order to find the cases of violence and the cases of exploitation within the broader sex industry and to help actually protect victims, what we need to do is to first decriminalize and also ask the people who work in the industry how to address this problem.
For fathers and mothers who might be watching and thinking, you know, good grief, I don't want my daughter to be lured into sex work. Do you have any advice for parents who are concerned about that, who maybe their daughters run away from home a few times?
Yes, I would say that it's really easy for parents to think of, you know, the scary person who's going to come and lure their daughter away. But it's also not very effective because in reality, teens have complex lives. They have complex relationships. We give a lot of freedom, but we also restrain them a lot. And it's really a much more difficult problem to address. We need to actually learn how to parent in the era of more technology. We need to learn how to listen to our kids and what they're saying. What we see among all the women that we talk to in the sex industry who've been victims of violence, the vast majority of them will identify that the violence that they experienced was domestic violence. So that's the kind of resource that they need, and that we know is much more difficult, and it's a much more complex relationship between the two people. People will talk about being in intimate partner violence situation where the fact that they're working in the sex industry is just one element of the relationship, but they're mostly like any other woman in a situation of domestic violence. And one of the big issues is that most of those resources that exist specifically around domestic violence are very exclusionary to sex workers and will not allow sex workers. Right now at Stella, every week we have several women who will come to us for help in terms of their domestic violence situation, and we cannot send them to shelters because they will not accept someone who continues to work in the industry. What we see also are women who might be exploited in their working conditions. In that case, it's not their partner, it's more their boss or someone that they work with. And then what we need to do is give them rights as workers. So it's a much more difficult question, and it's not as easy as saying there's these scary people, and usually it's a very racist sort of view of who these people are that are luring these girls. The way we talk about white girls who ran away is very different than when there's women of color who run away, and usually the pimps that we try to identify are young black males, and there's a really big racist element to this whole story.
Melanie, Sandra, Terry, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome.